did make me mad, all those football exercises, and they couldn't even handle one football exercise. Now, the second time I was fired needs a little bit of background. A few decades ago, I was in a lesbian collective. There were 8 women and 3 kids, and we lived together and worked together, and we did a lot of community service work. Back then, there was federal money available for community work. It was seeded grants. If you worked in the nonprofits, you know, community education, something, something. And it wasn't hard to get that money, but you had to have a 501c3 not-for-profit designation. So we would sit around, the 8 of us in the collective, the 8 adults in the collective, and we'd fill out the applications for 501c3 designation. And that was back when you did it with paper and pen. And we'd fill in the blanks, and we'd shuffle our names around. Like, if you were the president of the board on the last one, why don't you be the secretary this time? You can be the board of directors, and just fill in all the blanks. And we turned it in, and we'd get the designation. We had 5 different 501c3s that we did. And then we would get the seeded grants. And then when it came time to really do the work, we didn't care whose name was in what box on the application. We just all pitched in and did the work. And we did a lot of good stuff. We started a rape crisis hotline. We started recreation program for low-income kids. And we started the first shelter for battered women in Vermont, which was, the jargon was battered women back then. So we did a lot of good work. Eventually, the collective broke up, and I moved to Missouri. And I found myself applying for a job at an organization called Alive, which is still going, still exists. It's a network of safe houses and a bunch of support services for victims of domestic violence. That was the jargon at that time, victims of domestic violence. So I saw the ad. That was when you looked in the classifieds for ads, or for jobs. So I looked in classifieds, saw the ad, decided to apply. And I made a resume, sent it in, and I got an interview. So the next thing I had to do was go to a thrift shop and get some clothes, because I had nothing but overalls and work boots from my past life. And I came out in an outfit that I called corporate drag. And I went to the interview, which was in the illustrious location of a booth at Denny's. So I'm sitting in the booth at Denny's, and here come 2 women from the board of Alive. And they are from a different world than me. They have manicures and real gold jewelry and fancy clothes. I remember that one of them had on this gorgeous silk suit and a silk blouse and a silk scarf around her neck. We're sitting at the booth in Denny's, and they both have my resume, and they're looking at them, and they say, so I see you run an organization like this before. I see you've been executive director before. And I said, well, yes, I have. And told her a little bit about what we did. And they said, oh, well, I see you've had a lot of experience with not-for-profit organizations and boards of directors. And I said, well, yes, I have. And told them some about that. And I got the job. And I found out very, very soon that the organization, what it really was me as the staff and a very small group of volunteers. And that what we were expected to do was staff a 24/7 hotline. And then when somebody called, we were supposed to do all the support they needed. Take them to a safe house, take them to the hospital, take them to the police station, go gather up their kids. It would go on definitely all night long and sometimes for days. And it was ridiculous to expect such a small group to provide that kind of service. So I figured that my job as executive director was to run a sustainable organization. And that wasn't sustainable. So I called the volunteers in, and I said, what do you think about cutting the hotline back to just weekends, and we'll spend our energy recruiting and training new volunteers, and then we can go back to all week. They thought it was a brilliant idea, and we started doing that immediately. Very, very soon after that, I was in my office, which was in a basement of a church. Card table, 2 card table chairs, an IBM Selector typewriter, remember the kind with that little white red tape on there, a phone. So I'm in my office doing something, and in come the board of director ladies with their manicures and gold jewelry. And one of them, in her manicured hands, had a cardboard box. And she shoved it towards me and she said, you're fired. She said, you have 5 minutes to put your personal things in there. We're going to supervise you while you do that. And then we're going to escort you to your car. You're fired. And that's what happened. It seems that I thought that what an executive director did was figure out what was best for the organization and then do it. What they thought was the executive director asks the board what to do and then does whatever the board says. So that's why they fired him. But there I am, I'm sitting in my car outside the church, and I'm in the driver's seat, the box is here, and I am freaked out. After all the years I worked for women, the idea that they were treating me like an enemy of an organization that had to be watched while I walked, what was I going to steal, a car table chair? And that I was an enemy of a women's organization was so bizarre to me. And I started crying. I was crying and crying. And I said, I got to drive over to my boyfriend's house. Maybe that'll help. And I want to do a little aside here. So hold that thought. I'm in my car. I'm crying and crying. I just got fired. I'm going to go to my boyfriend's house, okay? Now here's the aside. I want to tell you why I am telling stories tonight. There are two reasons. One is because, like I said, I used to tell stories for a living, and that was quite a while ago. And when I heard that Sharon was putting this together, I thought it would be fun to get back into storytelling again. So I'm here for that reason. The other is I'm kind of new in town, and I'm definitely new to the arts and culture scene here. So I wanted to get up here and introduce myself. I'm looking for new friends. I'm looking for people to collaborate with creatively. I do a lot of different creative things. And I wouldn't mind some romance, to tell you the truth. Now, you may have heard, wait, she said lesbian collective. She said driving my boyfriend's house. I just want to say, if you're interested in finding out about me as a friend, a collaborator, or as a lover, come talk to me afterwards. Okay, so now I'm in the car, I'm crying to go to my boyfriend's house, right? And he had just graduated from chiropractic school 3 weeks before that. He was getting ready to set up his practice, but he wasn't quite ready to hang out his shingle, so he was free. And he hears my whole sob story, and he says, let's go on vacation. So the next day we went on vacation. And I had a Toyota station wagon at the time, and I had a used Vita aluminum canoe, which was longer than the station wagon, and I tied it to the top of the car. And you know how canoes kind of bend down? Well, the logo for the rental company was a smiling orange fish. Like this, the tail is here, and then its little fins, and then a big smiling face here. Well, if you sat in this front seat of that car and looked, what you're looking at was the underside of the canoe. So we looked at that smiling orange fish for 24 hours because we drove 24 hours straight through from St. Louis to Big Bend National Park down the Rio Grande, the Texas-Mexico border. And we canoed and we camped, and it was wonderful. They were calling it the 100-year bloom, which means it was the best flowering, it was spring, that they'd seen in 100 years. So it was a really great trip. And after a while, we came back, and Bill started his chiropractic practice in Alive. Who cares about Alive? I'd forgotten about Alive by then, found some other work, and life went on. And here comes the advice part. There are two very good reasons, tried and true, that if you ever get fired, I recommend that you go on vacation right away. The first reason is emotional. If you don't go on vacation, you're going to stay home and you're going to be a wreck and you're going to be mad and you're going to be upset and you're going to do yourself a lot of emotional wear and tear. Whereas if you go on vacation, you're going to have other things to think about, and by the time you come back, you won't care. The other is practical. If you start looking for a job right away, you're going to look, and then you're going to get a job, and you're going to be the new kid, and you're going to have hardly any vacation time, and you won't be able to go on vacation. And if you decide to work for yourself, you're going to have to work to build up a clientele, and you won't have any time to go on vacation. So my advice to you is if you ever get fired, go on vacation immediately.